Okay, folks, we're ready to go. So I will call committee of adjustment to order, January 29th, 3:30 p.m. here in Middlesex. This is the first meeting of the new year, so welcome. So I have some preliminary information to pass on, and then we'll get into the agenda. And I think we have 8 files today, so I'll move through them. So let's begin. Members of the public are invited to participate in this meeting of the committee adjustment by attending the meeting in person at the Overton Community Center located at 13168 Overton Road, Overton, Ontario. Members of the public may also access the meeting, which will be live streamed on the Middlesex Center YouTube channel, or by contacting the municipal deputy clerk to receive the registration link to join the meeting electronically. Members of the public wishing to appear as a delegation can register for the meeting by visiting middlesexcenter.ca/participating council meetings, or by contacting the municipal clerk. I'll read out her phone number. At 4:30 p.m. on the Monday of the week of the scheduled meeting. Requests to delegate are subject to the provisions of the Middlesex Center Committee Adjustment Procedure. Members of the public can choose to delegate in person or by electronic participation. Accessible formats and communication supports are available at time requests. So the next item is, do we have any additions to the agenda? Okay, we have none. I move on to the disclosure of pecuniary interest, which means conflict of interest. The Municipal Conflict of Interest Act requires any committee of adjustment members declaring a pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof, or the interest of a member of the committee of adjustment has not been disclosed by reason of the member's absence from the meeting, to disclose the interest at the first open meeting attended by the member of the committee of adjustment and otherwise comply with the act. So the first course of business, we have minutes from our last meeting on December 18th. So can I get a mover for Councilor Oates, seconder Councilor Shipley? Are there any comments or questions? No. Okay, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. I'm now moving on to current applications, and there's some clean number here too. That wish to receive full notification on any of the applications being considered today, I ask that you please send an email to the deputy clerk at middlesexcenter.ca requesting further information. Please be advised that comments expressed and written material presented are a matter of public record. If you have questions on any of the applications being heard today, we ask that you direct those to the appropriate planner in file. Members of the public that have requested to speak will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address council and provide comments on the application. In keeping with our procedure bylaw and our own policy, I would remind all of our new participants to use respectful language and uphold our values of cooperation, trust, and openness. At this time, since some of you are probably here for the first time, our procedure in this thing is I will call the application. I may make some comments around it, and then we will go to the planner on file, and I'll say who the name is, and they will present their write-up on the file. And then we will go to the applicant or agent if they wish to speak on behalf of their file. They do not have to. Okay, and then we turn to the internet. Well, is anybody wanting to speak to this application? And then we turn to the internet, and then we move on to questions and comments of council, and then we call motions, and then we put it to a vote. So that is the process tonight, and ongoing. So our first application for minor variance, file number A20-2024, pertains to 36 Robert Place in Iowa. This is a minor variance application filed by Ahmed and Tanya Sexek for release of the comprehensive zoning. And it's in order to reduce the side yard setback, and it pertains to relocation of a shed and pergola closer to the so this exists. It's not in compliance. So at this point, I will turn to planner on file, Marion Francis Ramos Cabral. Can you go ahead and present your report?
Thank you, Chair, and to the committee. The purpose of this report is to provide committee with a recommendation regarding a minor variance application for the property at 36 Sir Robert Place in Arva. The purpose and effect of the application for the variance is to seek relief from the zoning bylaw as it relates to the minimum side yard setback for accessory buildings within the UR1 or the urban residential first density zone. The applicant seeks to reduce the minimum side yard setback for accessory buildings from 1.5 meters to 0.6 meters or 2 feet. The effect of this would permit the shed and a pergola to be located 0.6 meters from the eastern lot line. So this property is located on the north side of Sir Robert Place, northeast of the intersection of Richmond Street and Ilderton. This property is surrounded by low-density residential development and abuts the Midway Creek, which is located immediately to the north. Staff identified, as the chair had mentioned, that there are 2 existing accessory buildings that are currently built. The shed is specifically located on the property line and is going to be relocated if the variance is approved. So notice of this application has been circulated to agencies as well as property owners in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. At the time of writing the staff report, we did not receive any comments from the public. However, we did receive correspondence from a neighbor who was concerned with the shed, which is located along the property line. The CBO, the chief building official, had reviewed the application and requested that the applicant also submit a lot grading plan and that the eaves troughs and downspouts are directed away from the abutting properties. Additionally, the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority reviewed the application and identified the presence of flooding and erosion hazards in the rear yard and on the property due to the Medway Creek. The structures are within a regulated area and in proximity to a steep slope. As such, the UTRCA had requested that a Section 28 permit be obtained from the UTRCA and that the applicant has been working with them over the last few weeks to address some of their concerns. So planning staff reviewed the application against 4 tests of minor variance as identified in the Planning Act. We do consider that the application is minor since the nature of the impact of the size and the height of the 2 accessory buildings are mitigated due to the location and orientation of the 2 accessory buildings. Further, they won't contain any living space and directly support the residential use and private amenities on the property. Additionally, locating
As soon as the air kicked in.
Okay. All right. So I'll just start with the planning analysis. So we do consider that the application is minor in nature since the impact of the height and size of the accessory buildings are mitigated due to the location and orientation of the 2 accessory buildings. Additionally, buildings won't contain any living space and directly support the residential use and private amenities on the property. Additionally, locating the buildings on the north and the west side away from the away from the property line is considered, however, would be contained within the regulated area. Therefore, this general location would be appropriate for the 2 buildings. Planning staff also wrote improved use of the land also maintains the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, since it does support the residential use of the land. So based on overview, staff proposed 3 conditions of approval that address the location of the accessory buildings, submission of the lot grading plan, and obtaining a permit from the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority. Given the analysis in the staff report, we do recommend that the application be approved with these 3 conditions as the proposal meets the 4 tests of a minor variance. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Miriam. At this time, I will call on the applicant or the agent to speak if they wish to this file. Anybody who want to do that? No? Okay. So I'll turn to the internet. Anybody online? Do we know? Sophie, do we know if anybody's online? Do we want to just call it out? Okay, so no one's online then either. So then I will turn to our committee and I will ask councilors, do we have any comments or questions on this file? Oh, sorry, was there somebody in the audience that wanted to speak to this file? Okay, do you want to speak to the file or not? You don't have to if you have agreement with what was stated. Okay, then go up there and press the button so the red light comes on.
On now. Okay. And I have to, I said, it was just, so we're the neighbors to the east of the building. We purchased the house and moved in October. So this was all in progress before we moved in. And then as a result of the posting being put on the end of the driveway, that we sort of realized what was happening and realized that the structure has already been built and is already, as far as we can tell, over the property line. Part of the fence was taken down, so we put sort of over that. So this is all happened very quickly, and so admittedly, we submitted to speak and we submitted some additional documentation last week, just because we didn't know the process and it all happened very quickly. Initially, I don't know if I'm going to ask questions, but one of my questions would be what are the normal parameters around allowing a variance to be reduced from, or a variance to be approved to move the setback from 5 feet to 2 feet. And these are big pieces of property, and there's no need for being that close to the property line. So that would be my first question. Yeah.
Okay, there we go. We've been talking to the planner, right, on this file, so she should have answered any of your questions. But you're asking us questions now, but yeah, I know it's not a question answer period, but all right. So what you could do is after this, you can talk to the planner if you want to wait, okay? And she may answer, or you can call her later, all right?
It's on. Yeah, and that's, I apologize. We didn't know if there was a process for that, but this all, as I said, happened quickly. The only answer we have back is that the variance request is related to both the building that's under construction and the one that is already completed. So it didn't sort of fill that out. And then I guess I would say at this point, I would restate that we would be in opposition to the variance being approved because this building is built onto our property, and it seems a little bit like ask for forgiveness as opposed to permission. And you still got what you want, and that's really, that's disappointing. So that would be, I guess, all I can say. If we can't ask questions around it, then that would be my submission. So, thank you.
So I will, as there's nobody on the internet, I'll turn to Wes, Councilor Cates. Go ahead.
Thank you. Through your chair to, I guess, to Marion. So I have a couple of questions. So I read this report, but in no way thought that it was already built or anything like that. And then I received the letter from the homeowner next door, and I was like, what is going on here? And multiple Google views and searches, and it's like, okay, is this already built? And now they have to apply for this, but I could see, and from the letter, that it's right on the property line. So I'm very confused at what is going on. Do they have to rip down what's there and rebuild it and asking for to be closer to the property line? So I get a little bit more on that. And then the other thing you said with the 3 conditions, and I'm just having a hard time. I mean, I read this the other day, but I'm having a hard time figuring out where the conditions are. So I'm hoping you can give me more information. Thank you.
Yeah, so through the chair to Councilor Cates. So with regard to the what's currently on site, so these buildings are constructed, they are there. The whole application came about as a result of a bylaw enforcement issue where the bylaw enforcement officer had requested that the buildings be relocated to 5 feet from the property line in accordance with the zoning bylaw. If they are not able to meet that standard, they have the option to either tear the buildings down or apply for a variance to accommodate some sort of relief. In this instance, they did request the variance. If it's not approved, we go back to those two options, either move it to 5 feet from the property line or remove the buildings entirely.
To Marion, so, just to clarify, I don't have a problem with the closer, which I get, why waste the 5 feet when you can do, I get that. My question is, now, on the property line or are they the 1 point whatever away? What's their current status? Because this makes it sound like they're maybe going to be moved, they're going to be rebuilt. So that's my question.
Yeah, so it looks like the shed itself is built on the property line. It's in line with their fence line. The pavilion is set off a little bit. It's not quite clear how far it is, but that will also be relocated so that they are the approved amount.
And the conditions, so they are being moved, and then the conditions are,
So the conditions are in the recommendation itself. So the conditions are that the accessory buildings are located in the same general location as shown on the site plan. So just in conformity with the front yard setback from the property line and behind the building. And then, of course, they're 2 feet away from the property line to the east. That the landowner submit a lot grading plan completed by a professional engineer to this CBO, and that the landowner obtain a Section 28 permit from the TRCA.
sorry, Marion, where are they in here? I'm like, I'm looking at Marion's report.
It's in the detail section of the report. Take a moment. I'm just gonna go out here. I'll come back to it.
There's 4 things.
Stephanie, did you want to add to this at all? No? Okay. Just a second. All right, so, Councilor Rights?
Through your chair, this is clarification for the couple over there. Bylaws, it would be, the planner can correct me if I got this wrong. I think I got it right. Our red bylaws, the distance would have been 5 feet. The new bylaws are 2 feet, but until the province approves our new official plan, it's kind of in limbo. So that would answer your 2-foot question. What I'm concerned about is we have to know exactly if the fence is the property line. It's got to be 2 feet off of that. And if they took part of the old fence down, I think they got to put the fence back up because obviously they took it down to make the building fit. So that I think should be a condition where that's got to come back, that fence. And like I said, both sides got to agree where the property line is too. Thank you.
Councilor Shipley? Thank you, Chair, to President, I guess. Are you happy with the fence? The original fence was the property line, or you don't think it is the property line? What do you do? Plans?
In front of the former owner, you would suggest that the existing fence was the property line. That fence was put up when there was a 36 Sir Robert built that pool, and the former owner requested that the fence be put up, because the fence has to be put up, and that it matched the fence on the other side. And so that we're going to assume that at that point in time it was agreed that that was the property line, and that's where the fence was.
So saying that, and we've heard from our staff that it is now 2 feet, basically, the distance. Are you okay if the building is moved 2 feet back from the fence? Are you, providing the fence is on the property line, the fence goes the building goes 2 feet back, are you okay with that?
Ideally, it would be 5 feet, which is that how these buildings were originally built, and the spacing. Our house is 8 feet off the property line, so to have something right on the property line right next to us seems, ethically, not ethically, aesthetically sort of not pleasing. You don't need to be right on the property line. These lots are large. If that's the rule, we're going to accept that you can be 2 feet. Fence so that it matches, will be appropriate. We'll by the rules as it exists. And the other thing that is in the report, sort of add to it, is the drainage. And I know it's been mentioned, currently the downspouts are basically draining onto our property, so we would want to make sure that, like, is 2 feet really going to make that much difference in terms of the drainage? And has it been affected by putting a concrete pad on the property line and all this sort of stuff? So hopefully that's resolved. These are all things that we would have questions about, but we weren't able to answer beforehand.
So through the chair, I guess the fence was taken down by the applicant, so it was taken over you. Sorry, it was taken over the applicant. Okay, so do we need to make that a condition then, that the fence goes back up slowly?
Through the chair to Councillor Shipley, it's not something that would typically be addressed from a planning perspective. I mean, typically the fence issues are civil matters between the neighbors, and we would encourage them to, of course, we would want, we could encourage the property owner to do that, but it's not typically something that we can really address through the minor variance, through the zoning.
So, yeah, thank you. I'm going to go back up to, is there anybody else who wants to speak to this file that's in the audience? No? Okay, my next question is to you, Miriam. In light of the new information and discussion here, do we have to add any more conditions to this file, or are you happy with what's there?
I think we're satisfied again. As I mentioned about the fence, I don't know if that's necessarily appropriate to put in the conditions. And considering, I think there's general consensus among the property owners that the fence line is generally considered the property line. So I think that would satisfy us.
So, question raised next to me: is there a building permit for this situation?
Through the chair, this may fall under the size requirements. There is a size requirement for structures that require a building permit. I believe these are under that requirement, but we will follow up with our building department to confirm that it is moved in accordance with the minor variance.
So, to the gentleman, you're the neighbor, sir. You don't have to come up to the podium. So hopefully you have good relations with your neighbor and you can talk it out. The applicant is not here tonight, correct? No. That's what I would suggest. Your concerns with your neighbor, that you attended this meeting, and go from there. Okay?
We're just gonna say thank you.
So the recommendation on this file is that this minor variance application be granted. So if there are no other comments or questions, I ask for a mover. Councillor Shipley, a seconder. Councillor Arts. All right, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. So the minor variance is accepted. So that's it, sir. Okay. He's not happy. So I'm going to move on to the next file, which is item 5.2 on your agenda. It's application for minor variance 20706 Van Eck Road. This is a minor variance application filed by Josh and Jasmine Fleming. And what they're doing is they're adding on to an existing accessory building. And the planner on this file is Dan Fitzgerald. And at this time, I'll ask Dan to present his report.
Yeah, so through the chair to members of the committee, I'm Dan Fitzgerald, Manager of Planning with Middlesex County, just here tonight providing professional planning services to the committee. So as mentioned, the purpose and effect of this particular minor variance application being A21/2024 is to seek relief from the zoning bylaw as it does relate to the maximum lot coverage of a residentially associated accessory structure in the agricultural A1 zone. So in this particular case, the applicant is requesting a maximum lot coverage of 242.2 meters squared, whereas the bylaw currently permits a maximum of 165 meters squared. The property is located on the east side of Vinec Road. It is south of the Gainsborough and Vinec Road intersection. It's designated agricultural area in the county's official plan as well as Middlesex Center's official plan, and it is zoned agricultural A1 zone. It's generally bordered by single detached residence to the north, and institutional use to the east, as well as agricultural lands to the south and west. In terms of the actual application, I can see that it was maybe a bit confusing in terms of what the applicant was applying for, the existing structures on site and what's being proposed. So I'm just going to kind of walk through the committee as well as the public as to what the applicant's intent is in this particular situation. So there are two existing, well, it's one building, but it looks like two separate buildings, agricultural structures that were located on this particular parcel of land. The applicant has since added a 400 square foot addition to those existing agricultural structures. While at the same time, they did convert one of those existing agricultural structures to what we would refer to as a residential accessory use. So it's no longer used solely for an agricultural purpose. It's used more in line with what we would consider a residential style accessory building use. So with that, they have requested an overall maximum size of 2,610 square feet, which is that 242.2 square meters of the existing buildings that are located on the property, which do exceed that maximum 165 meters squared total. So just for clarification from the committee as well as the public, there's no additional buildings being considered as part of this application. It's essentially recognizing the residential conversion of these structures on the site. With that said, the variance has been reviewed against the four tests of the Planning Act. Generally, the impact to the increase in size to the accessory structure is not really considered to impact surrounding lands due to the existing size of the parcel. Additionally, it is noted that the majority of the structures do already exist and are only being considered residential related to the accessory structures being converted from agricultural uses. So comments and questions have come up regarding the applicant's intended use of the structure as well. A comment was included that the applicant wants to construct a wash bay in the 400 square feet addition associated with that residential accessory building. Staff do note that the bylaw does not regulate the interior use of an accessory structure so long as it is not used as a dwelling unit, as a home occupation, or any other prohibited use in the bylaw. So generally speaking, as would apply anywhere, should the applicant use the structure as a wash bay, they would only be able to do so to wash their own personal vehicles on site and not as a commercial use. So just to clarify, no commercial vehicles or use would be permitted under the bylaw. So to that end, additional conditions have been recommended for inclusion in the decision, as stated by the chief building official from comments that we did receive. And that those would be number one, that a change of use permit be issued for the existing structures. Number two, that no portion of the proposed addition or existing building be used in relation to a home, occupation, or business. Number three, that no portion of the proposed addition or existing building be rented for short or long term for any use. And number four, that the building may not be used as a dwelling unit without first obtaining a building permit and zoning permissions. So subject to these particular conditions as listed, staff are recommending approval of the minor variance. So thank you, and I'm certainly available to answer any questions.
So you caught all the additional additions that you talked to the deputy clerk about, Dan, in this file? Okay, thank you. This time I will turn to the applicant or their agent to talk to this file if they wish to. Or anyone else here wish to talk to this file? No, I'll take that as a no. Is there anybody on the internet? No. Yes, that's what you just said. If you, the applicant, All right, if you're the applicant or the agent and you wish to speak to the file, all right, what are you? Are you? Okay. Okay, so that's next up then. If you wish to speak to this file, you can, and do so now. Okay, push the button.
My name is, just right up right. My name is John Wilson. I live at 20567 Frank Lane, which is not an immediate neighbor to the variance request. But I do have an interest in the property, and particularly in the property's use. And the planner has made it a little clearer to me what is being restricted as far as the property use. The barn is lovely, and I really do think it should have a variance so that it can continue to exist. He's done a magnificent job with the barn. So I think that's a good thing. My main concern is that Middlesex Center over the years has done a great job separating agricultural land from other urban uses and keeping agriculture with agriculture, residential with residential, and commercial with commercial. And I would like to see that continue. We've recently had one situation in our neighborhood where a variance was permitted that I didn't agree with, but it was permitted where more intensive commercial could be permitted in a largely rural residential agricultural area. So I'd like council to give some thought to that with this application. And the owner of this property has a great web presence and a respectable web presence. I think he's probably a good operator, and I really have no reason to suspect that he might use that barn for commercial purposes. But he is running a large company, cement equipment, firm trucks, and it really would be an ideal setting to be able to bring that equipment home, have it within his reach. And I would just like to make sure that Middlesex Center recognizes that that might be a problem. I don't know what you can do to ensure it doesn't happen. The planners indicated that it must not happen. So I just don't know what security the neighbors of that property have to ensure that concretous equipment does not appear on site. Thank you.
I can turn to a planner, but my comment will be, I think he's addressed what can be done there. And then it becomes a bylaw enforcement issue where people report that he's doing something that's not in, not part of the condition or the use of the property. I think that's the best we can do. But I turn to Dan and say, did I capture it, Dan, or is there more to be said?
Yeah, so through the chair, honestly, a common question that we get with a lot of these types of applications. Certainly, from the regulatory perspective, we can't speculate as to what an individual will do with their properties. All we can do is say what's permitted and what's not permitted. So any type of use that potentially occurs on that property outside of the bylaw that's permitted, it would be, as Councilor Burris has indicated, a bylaw enforcement issue. So that would come down to action against the property owner on behalf of the municipality to correct that.
Is there anybody else that wants to speak to this? Please go up there and press the button, sir.
Hello, my name is Michael Prince, and I live in close proximity to the, I guess, application for a minor variance, the land in question, and I grew up with at the lands that are directly behind this, so I'm quite familiar with it. The only thing that I wanted to state was that on the application, the file number, the report number PLA-7-2025, on the very bottom, I think Dan clarified it. It said the applicant is proposing to construct an addition to an existing accessory building in the rear yard. The maximum size of the structure as proposed would be 242 square meters. So, but I think that Dan has resolved that, I guess. Maybe a little bit of misinterpretation between this and the drawing that from the surveyor on the very last page, that there will be no more building. He's just asking for the existing buildings to be, the use be deterred. And I reiterate what John said. I think that he's done an excellent job, and the buildings are much nicer looking and much more appealing. And as a neighbor, I think realistically, to keep it as a residential use, I think it's a reasonable request. And but the only concern I have is the general intent of the A1 zoning possibly be at risk with this wash bay. But that's based on the applicant, on his business, and that's up to him. And as Dan said, that's a bylaw issue. But I just wanted to make sure that everyone was understanding that there was no more extra buildings being built, and that the buildings on there are just being transferred the use from A1 agricultural to residential outbuilding. And that's all I wanted to make sure of. Thank you.
So I'm just going to turn back to Dan. I think you've captured everything, Dan. Do you have any other further comment?
Yeah, so through the chair, yeah, as I indicated, I didn't have an opportunity to speak to some of the members of the public as well prior to, just in terms of comments that we've received. It's based on the nomenclature in the bylaw as to how it regulates accessory buildings for residential uses versus others. So while the addition portion was that 400 square meters, we're trying to rectify and recognize that residential function across the entirety of the site. And the reason why we need to do that is because the bylaw says that cap number is for all of those buildings, not one specific. So in this particular instance, the applicant basically is trying to recognize the fact that they did do a conversion, they did do an addition, but that's going to be the cap at this point in time. So there would be no additional structures beyond that without any additional planning approvals.
Thank you, Dan. I think he's answered your question. Is there anybody else in the audience that wishes to speak this file? Would you step up? Please state your name and press the button.
Hello, my name is Bonnie Prince, and I reside directly behind the Fleming residence at 2038 Gainsborough Road. My main concern is with the wash bay. Mr. Fleming does have numerous vehicles. So with this wash bay, we're on a septic system out there. Where's the water coming from? From the well is a flow meter being used. This bay impact the environment. Where is the dirty water going after washing vehicles and equipment? Is the dirty water going into a septic system that is based on the size of the wash bay and residential conversion? Is the dirty water going into the lake drain, which dumps directly into the oxbow system, or is it just going to be swept outside? There is a row of cedar trees directly behind Mr. Fleming's structure, which gives privacy to the Flemings as well as us. Will the runoff affect these trees? Since my residence is close proximity to the proposed wash bay, type of system he is using emit a lot of noise and smell. It's directly right there at the house. In the application, the wash bay has been described as residential use only, and like the other speakers, we are concerned about eventual, which we cannot guarantee, going from residential to commercial use. And thank you for listening to my concerns. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think our planner was caught still in the conditions of this. But I will turn to him and ask him if he has any other comments. I don't know if he has to answer all those questions with this variance application, but I'll turn it over to you, Dan.
Yeah, through the chair. And I appreciate the conversation I did have with Bonnie in advance as well as the meeting, just some of the questions that she did ask. So I did have the opportunity to speak with our Director of Public Works with the municipality. bringing up the concerns raised in terms of the water and wastewater, and where it's going, the confluence and that type of thing. So there wasn't really any concern, I guess it would be from the municipal perspective. If it is used solely for residential purposes as proposed, it would, in the view, when we talked about it, it's no different than someone else pushing a vehicle in their driveway. So where does that water go at the end of the day? If it does become some sort of enforcement issue, that's outside of the scope of the municipality. It becomes a provincial issue in terms of contamination. So from our perspective, in terms of the water flow and analysis, there's nothing in terms of the variance that flag like a concern at this point in time. But again, if there is a concern, there are those channels there. And if there is an issue that arises in the future, there are those channels that are built in to both the municipal legislation and the provincial legislation that would allow for enforcement action to be undertaken. So I guess that would be my comment in general.
That answers some of your questions, but basically we're standing by the criteria that the planner has identified for this variance. We can't control, God knows what you might do if it's for residential use, okay? So as Daniel said, it's like washing your car in the driveway, where does everything go to? So I'll leave it at that, okay? I'm going to ask again, is there anybody else that wants to speak to this file on violence? No. Is there anybody else on the internet on this file? No. So now I will turn to council for comments or questions. Anyone? Okay, Councilor Cates, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I guess to Dan. So I also had a couple of phone calls or heard from some comments from a couple of residents in the area and a lot of the questions that were raised about the drainage, et cetera. And so one of the things that, I thought of was, well, on this, we're just being asked about lot coverage. The minor variance is for lot coverage. However, there seems to be, this is file 2 for 2 now, that it's already built this and this and this, and it's not the whole story that we read about, but we try to answer public questions on it. Fine, we're asking for the coverage, which, by the way, you got a little math error in there. But anyways, but you've opened the can of worms here, I guess, to ask more questions. So this is A1, but they've got a secondary unit built in this building. It's already all built, but they turned it into a secondary unit. No?
Yeah, I think maybe a bit of confusion in terms of just our language that we're using to clarify between an agricultural use versus a residential accessory building. So there's like no residential units exist within the structure. It's just, it was converted from what we would consider an agricultural use, where there's no size limitations on the use of a building or structure, to a residentially associated accessory building.
Thank you for that. So just to clarify also on the A1, so there's A1, what you can do in your A1 residential. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, so generally speaking, when we review structures in an A1 zone that are agriculturally related specific structures, there's no size limit. Like, they're not held to those same accessory building size limitations, setbacks, heights, those types of things, because there could be any number of agricultural structure that is built on the site, like say a poultry barn or a livestock facility or a silo or whatnot. Obviously that's subject to MDS and everything else. So those types of structures are classified differently. It's just an agricultural use. The accessory building standards that then apply in these particular zones are specific to those that are residentially related uses. So not the barn where the tractor and everything else is storing, but the detached garage where they're putting their cars, something like that.
Okay, thank you. Through the chair. So then basically, because what my head was thinking when we were talking about the wash bay and those kinds of things was if you had a farm property, A1, they could probably wash their tractors all day long in there. But you're saying here, still in A1, they can't, and that's because of the residential designation. Is that a fair way to look at it?
Yeah, just through the chair. I'm just thinking in my head here. So if there's an agricultural operation that's occurring on the property, they can still wash their tractors and or any of the agricultural equipment anywhere they want on the property. Similarly, you can wash your vehicle wherever you want on your property. The difference in distinction comes from you can't bring commercial vehicles on site for another entirely unrelated business and wash those. And that's the distinction that we're making. We're saying, yeah, if you have your agricultural buildings, you can still wash them on site because they're related to your agricultural use. Yes, if you have your personal vehicles, you can still wash them on site. Every residence has that ability to do that. It's that you can't bring your, concrete as commercial vehicles on site and wash those in the wash bay. That's the distinction we're making.
Thank you, Dan. So we should speak to his phone. Well, sorry, I'm on council. Let's move. Anybody on council? Councilor Shipley. Just Dan, maybe to put the mind at ease with this wash bay, like there's no way a commercial truck would fit in there as part of the wash bay because there's no variance for a height required. They haven't changed that, is that correct?
Through the chair, I guess it would just depend on what the vehicle was. At the end of the day, maybe if it was a pickup truck, okay, yeah, it'll fit in there. But if it's a commercial concrete pumping truck, I would beg to differ. There's no way it's going to get in there.
Councilor Shipley, one more. You little chair goes stuck in there and just listening to all this, I'm assuming the applicant did not apply for a building permit because this would have been dealt with prior to a building permit. So I think we can go in with this.
Through the chair, the answer to that is yes. Our building department has been actively involved in this and will be following it.
Anything else from council? Okay, so I'll call motions. Councilor Oates, Councilor Shipley is the seconder, okay? So I'll call the vote, recommended to be granted. All in favor? Okay, so that's granted. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to move on to item 5.3 on our agenda. This is an application for minor variance A242024 154 Edgewater. This pertains to a minor variance application for a pool house, and the planner on file here is Dan Fitzgerald. So Dan, I'll turn to you to present your report.
So through the chair to members of the committee, so the purpose and effect of the application for minor variance A24-2024 is to seek relief from the comprehensive zoning bylaw as it does relate to the maximum lot coverage as well as setbacks of a residentially associated accessory building in the urban residential first density zone. So in this particular case, the applicant is proposing a maximum size of 34.4 square meters, represented as 4.2% lot coverage, whereas the bylaw permits a maximum of the lesser of 3% lot coverage or 50 square meters. As well, they have requested an interior side yard setback of 0.91 meters and a rear yard setback of 0.61 meters, whereas the bylaw currently requires a setback of 1.5 meters. So this property is located on the south side of Edgewater Boulevard, south of the intersection of Edgewater and Westbrook Drive in Kilworth. It is designated settlement area in the county's official plan, residential in Middlesex Center's official plan, and zone urban residential first density zone in the comprehensive zoning bylaw. It's bordered by single detached residents to the north, south, and west, as well as a natural forested area in the Thames River to the east. The applicant is proposing variance generally due to the size of the proposed structure in the rear yard, which is intended to act as a pool house and an open roofed outdoor space. So the variance has been reviewed against the four tests of the Planning Act. Generally, the impact of the variance to increase the size as well as reduction of setbacks is not considered to impact surrounding lands due to the location of the accessory structure in the rear yard. Subsequent to drafting the report, we did receive additional comments from our chief building official. He has requested the inclusion of the following conditions. Number one, that a lot grading plan be provided to from the developer's engineer. And number two, that the roof leaders and downspouts be provided and directed to prevent water from discharging directly onto the neighboring properties. So with that said, subject to these conditions, staff are recommending approval of the minor variance, and I'm certainly available to answer any questions. Thank you.
You can just go there and push it for me. So I'm going to turn to the audience and say, is the applicant or their agent here, and do they wish to speak to this file? Having said that, no. Are they here? Okay, well, we'll get to online in a moment. Anybody in the audience wish to speak to this file? No. Okay, so now I turn online. Applicant agent on this file wish to speak to it? Are you there? Hello, sir. Are you the applicant or the agent for the applicant? Can you hear me?
Yeah, hi council. My name is Patrick. I'm with Quality Carpentry. Also Jeffrey Paul is with Quality Carpentry, so we're the building agent representing the Zizzos.
Okay, do you wish to comment on the file, or do you be presented by the planner?
Essentially, we're just here to answer any questions they might have regarding everything. If the stipulations that were just stated sound totally fine with us. We have all intentions of keeping drainage and stuff to a minimum, and are happy to provide a grading plan to state that, I guess.
So you understand the conditions that the planner has read out. You'll probably receive the report. So at this time, then I'll turn to committee adjustment members to ask, do they have any comments or questions on this file? Okay, so nobody on the committee has any questions for you, sir? Okay, so now I'm going to turn to the committee and ask for a mover and seconder on this file. Mover, Councilor Kate, seconder, Councilor Crows. All the vote, all in favor? Okay, so that is granted, that minor variance, sir. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Dan and council.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on, item 5.0, application for minor variance 4191 Carriage Road. This is a minor variance application filed by Markley on behalf of Mary Lou. And this pertains to an accessory dwelling that is proposed to be built closer to the front lot line than the main building. So I will turn to our planner to present his report, and that would be Brian Fitzgerald.
So through the chair, the purpose and effect of the application for minor variance A25/2024 is to seek relief from the Middlesex Center comprehensive zoning bylaw, as it does relate to the location of an accessory building in the agricultural A1 zone. So in this particular case, the applicant is proposing to construct an accessory building closer to the road than the existing residents on the lot. The lot is located on the west side of Carriage Road, and it's north of the intersection at Sharon Drive and Carriage Road. It's a designated agricultural area in the county's official plan and Middlesex Center's official plan, and it's zoned agricultural A1 zone in the zoning bylaw. The subject lands are generally surrounded by agricultural lands and crop production, although it does border a body of water to the south, which is regulated and owned by the Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority. And due to the proximity to the tributary, the majority of this particular parcel is regulated. The applicants do propose a minor variance, and it's generally based on the location of the regulated area, as well as future plans for a new dwelling to be constructed on the particular parcel. The variance has been reviewed against the Florida Planning Act tests. Generally, the impact of the accessory building being located in the front yard is considered to be mitigated by the size of the lands as well as the existing characteristics of the lot. So it is set back quite far from the road, and it is fairly well vegetated from the particular road. So as such, we are not necessarily considering any additional impacts to any of the surrounding lands due to the location as well as the existing characteristics. I would say the application was circulated in advance of the meeting, and we did not receive any comments back with this particular one. So given the above, I am recommending approval of minor variance application A25-2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I understand the applicant is online, but before I turn to the applicant, we may receive questions from members of this committee. We'll get to the audience. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to make a comment on this file? Well, so on the internet, I presume it's only the applicant who's online. Sophie? Yes? Oh, okay. So I'll just wait a moment.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Burke?
Yeah,
Mr. Burke, can you hear me?
yeah, you're really choppy, but
Okay, right. Okay, are you all set up?
pardon?
Are you all set up, ready to go?
Yep, I'm ready to go.
Okay, so this is committee adjustment. So at this point, do you have any comments on your application?
I have no comments. I'm just here to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Okay, thank you. So now I will turn to committee members. Does anybody have any comments or questions to the planner or the applicant? Chris?
I have a question for Dan. My question is just regarding the Conservation Authority. Have they responded on providing comments?
Yeah, so through the chair, they didn't provide any formal comments actually with respect to the circulation of this application. But we have spoken to them in advance and identified that particular issue to the landowner as well as the applicant. That it's likely in this case they would require a Section 28 permit from Lower Thames. But it also kind of just depends on where exactly that accessory building gets located at the end of the day. And in that front yard location, it is possible for them to actually get it fully outside of that regulated area. So they may or may not require a Section 28 permit.
Okay, thanks, Dan. So, Mr. Becker, just hang in there for a moment. We'll hear our decision in a moment. A side note here, I talked to our CAO that I noticed our own staff should come on with comments on files. We see that they haven't commented at times. We should at least come in with a positive no comment so that we know we've seen it. I don't know how much we can control the outside agencies like the Conservation Authority. Okay, that's a side note. So if there's no more questions or comments from committee, I would ask for a mover and a seconder on this file. It's recommended that we grant it. Council Arts, Council Cates. So I'll call the vote. All in favor? Okay, that's carried, Mr. Barkley. You have approval for the minor variance, okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, moving on to item 5.5, and this is one of the rare occurrences when our own in-house planner just to present a file, a committee of adjustment. So it's really the preamble here. On January 27th, Stephanie Bergman, our planner, has written a note to all of you, should have received it. It gives us a description of what's going on with us. It pertains to 2 surplus farm residences, 2 conditions that were being appealed to the Ontario Land Tribunal. The one was put aside in the settlement, and the other one pertains to 2 properties that exceed the 1 acre limit that we've imposed. So I'll just stop there and I'll turn to our planner, Stephanie Bergman.
Thank you, through the chair. So yes, the purpose of this report is just to bring forward revised consent conditions for 2 consent applications. So this is B11 and B12 2023. And this pertains to the 2 properties known as 14875 Ilderton Road and then 12626 Ilderton Road. So these 2 applications were initially approved with conditions by the Committee of Adjustment on June 21st, 2023. And as the chair mentioned, the proponent had subsequently appealed 2 of the conditions associated with those approvals. One included the 1 acre size limit for the parcels created, and then the other was the county road dedication. So through discussions between the legal counsels, reference plans were prepared to delineate the extent of the severances, which were attached to my staff report as attachments 1 and 2. And so the revised conditions, as I've outlined in the staff report, are really just to address the resultant size of the severed lot, as well as the date by which the consents are to be completed. So as you noted, the revised condition will, instead of referring to the 1 acre size, will refer to the attached reference plans as the reference. So all other conditions, including the requirement for the county road dedication, all of those conditions will remain the same. So we're just modifying those 2 conditions for each of those applications. So we're satisfied that the revised conditions are minor in nature, and we note that the OLT hearing has subsequently been withdrawn by the applicant. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. I'm going to turn to the audience. If there's anyone here that has any comments or questions on this file, I presume there's no one on the internet on it. Or we do. She's busy. Okay. We're just going to have somebody on the internet pertaining to this file. And what's his name? Todd. We don't. Just Todd. Todd, are you there? Here. Okay. Now for this file. Okay. Thank you. So I want to turn to the committee for any comments or questions on this file. Anyone? Everybody understand it? Okay, thank you. So now I'll call for a mover and a seconder. Mover Councilor Shipley, seconder Councilor Ferris, and I'll call the vote. All in favor? Okay, that's carried, seconded. All right, thank you. Next file up is item 5.6 on our agenda. It's an application for consent or severance. It's B182024. It's 14724 9 Mile Road, and it's filed by a numbered company 2459533. And this is in order to sever a resident surplus to a farm operation as a result of consolidation. So I'm going to turn to the planner on the file, who is Marion Francis Ramos Cabral. Go ahead and present your report, Marion.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report is to provide the committee with a recommendation regarding the consent application for the property at 14724 9 Mile Road, which is located on the northwest corner of the intersection of Adelaide Street North and 9 Mile Road. The purpose and effect is to sever a resident surplus to a farm operation as a result of consolidation. The proposed severing lot has a frontage of approximately 187 feet on 9 Mile Road and an area of about 1 acre. The retained parcel would maintain a frontage of approximately 2,000 feet on 9 Mile and an area of 100 acres. So the subject lands contain a single detached dwelling as well as accessory buildings within a cluster, and partially part of the land is regulated. The lands are serviced by private services, and surrounding land uses are predominantly agricultural. Notice of this application has been circulated to agencies and property owners in accordance with the Planning Act. Leading up to this meeting, staff should not receive any comments from members of the public. Staff reviewed the applications and provided standard conditions related to the removal of any agricultural buildings, including severed lands, as well as access and servicing to the severed lands. Staff reviewed the application against all relevant local and provincial policies. We are generally satisfied that the criteria for severance of the surplus farm dwelling severance has been met or can be appropriately addressed through the conditions as recommended in the report. Staff recommend that the consent application be 18/2024 be granted, subject to 13 conditions as noted in the staff report. The reason that the application is consistent with the PPS and conforms to the county and Middlesex Center official plan. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm going to turn to the audience. I don't know whether the applicant is in the audience or their agent and wish to speak to this file. Anyone? If not, there may be okay, we don't know if they're on. So I'll pause and we can move on from there. I'm now going to turn to council members. Does anyone have any comments or questions on this file? Councilor Simpson, go ahead. Oh,
Just a quick comment. I appreciate the applicant keeping us at 1 acre. Just makes things simple for us. That's appreciated. Thank you.
There's some positive reinforcement. Right to go, Councilor Shepherd. Yep. Okay, choose. This file has been recommended to be granted this minor variance, so I'll now call for motions. Moved, Councilor Shipley, seconded, Councilor Keats. Call the vote, all in favor? Okay, that is carried. So that is granted. To application 5-7, which is consent application or severance 11065 Sinclair Drive. It's another surplus farm dwelling severance. So I turn to the planner to read or present the report. Dan Fitzgerald, go ahead, Dan.
So through the chair, the purpose and effect of this consent application being B22/2024 is to sever a surplus farm residence from the farm parcel that's located at 11065 Sinclair Drive. The severed parcel is proposed to have a frontage of approximately 30 meters on Sinclair Drive, and Councilor Shipley will be happy to know an area of approximately 1 acre. The retained farmland would maintain a broken frontage of 574 meters on Sinclair in an area of 32 hectares or 79 acres. The applicant is proposing to maintain a dwelling, a storage shed, and associated services on the severed parcel. The remnant would be maintained as farmland, generally in crop production. The subject lands do contain a single detached dwelling and associated accessory buildings, and it is actively farmed. The lands are serviced by private services in the form of septic systems and well. The property is surrounded by agricultural lands and crop production, and a portion of the subject lands is regulated by the St. Clair River Conservation Authority. I have reviewed the application against the provincial planning statement, county's official plan, as well as Middlesex Center's official plan. I confirmed that farm consolidation would occur as a result of the severance. As well, all other requirements are included as conditions of approval that the applicant will be required to clear prior to issuance of a certificate of consent. So as stated in the report, I am satisfied that the applicant does meet the criteria and recommend that application B22/2024 be approved. Again, subject to those conditions that are outlined. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Okay. I'll turn to the audience. Is the applicant or the agent here who wish to talk to this file? Right? Is anybody online that wishes to talk to this file? No. Okay. So then we can proceed to members of council. Are there any comments or questions from the committee? No. Okay. So then we can move on to motions to move this along to vote. Councilor Clares, Councilor Cates. Okay, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Okay, that is passed, granted. So I'll now call item number 5.8, which is application for consent file B242024 14494 Medway Road. This pertains to a severance of agricultural land of 10 acres. It is being deferred, and our plan will talk more to it. There's an issue with our comprehensive zoning bylaw on this 10 acres. I won't say anymore. We'll turn it over to our planner, Dan Fitzgerald, to present his report.
So through the chair to members of the committee, so item 5.8 on the agenda, the purpose and effect of this consent application is to sever a farm parcel from an existing farm. So generally what we would call this would be a farm split. So the severed lands are proposed to have a frontage of 278.9 meters on Medway Road and a lot area of 4.06 hectares or 10 acres. The remnant parcel would maintain a frontage of approximately 241 meters and an area of 42 hectares. So the subject lands do contain an existing single detached dwelling as well as several barns and sheds which are accessed off of Medway Road. The land is serviced by a private on-site well as well as sanitary services in terms of septic beds. It is surrounded by agricultural lands to the north, east, and south, as well as existing residential developments, generally in the format of single-family dwellings to the west. Portions of both the severed and retained lands are identified as regulated by the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority. So as mentioned in a review of the application, planning staff have indicated to the applicant that farm splits where the severed and retained parcel result in lands that are less than 40 hectares are generally not supported and discouraged in both the county's official plan as well as Middlesex Center's official plan. So as such, the applicant does recognize that prior to a decision being recommended on this particular application, it's likely that additional planning applications would be required and will need to be made. So as such, staff are recommending on this particular application a deferral to provide the applicant with the ability to seek those additional applications prior to be able to sort of meet the policy test prior to a recommendation coming forward in this particular application. So thank you, and I'm certainly available to answer any questions that the committee may have on this one.
Thank you, Dan. I'm going to turn to the audience. Is the applicant or their agent here who wish to speak to this file? Are the applicants online? Okay. Is this Stephen Stapleton? Stephen, are you there? Hold on.
Hello? Can you hear me now?
Yes, Stephen, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I
Okay,
can.
so I'm the chair of the committee of adjustment. So do you have any comments
Yeah,
in support of your application? Go
yes,
ahead.
thank you very much. Steve Stapleton, Vice President of Auburn Development. So I want to thank staff and the members of the committee for the opportunity to speak. We also support the staff recommendation to defer. There are ongoing related processes that are yet to be resolved, and that may impact the application. So we agree with staff that the best course of action is to defer this to seek those items being resolved that will pave the way for the approval of the consent. So we look forward to that opportunity and would support the deferral until those processes unfold.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stapleton. I'm going to continue on with my other comments. Mr. Stapleton, are you done? To comments or questions from the committee. Sorry, wrong to hold on. Sorry. Okay. So questions on this application, Councilor Oates?
Sure, this is, I guess, like the definition of seven surplus farm residents. This is nowhere even close to that definition. Like it's so far out in left field. It's deferred, but I mean, we're gonna have to change a lot before it to come back to being anywhere close to being considered surplus farm residents. Severance. Thank you.
Councilor James, go ahead.
Thank you through, Mr. Chair to Dan. Yeah, that's what, I agree with Councilor Arts. So many ways. So it says in here to surplus farmland as the other ones that we already saw, but when we were talking, it said farm split. So I didn't know if that means something else, but I agree with Councilor Arts on where do we go from 1 acre to suddenly we have 10 acres. So what kind of paperwork would to do is to come back to have 10 acres severed off.
Okay, I'm trying to let the cat out of the bag here, okay?
Yeah, so through the chair to members of the committee, so just maybe a bit of a point of clarification on the actual application in this case. So this is not a surplus dwelling severance as proposed. And the reason being is in this particular case, there's no surplus property that would qualify this as a surplus dwelling residence severance. So in this particular case, that's why I use the term farm split, where they're seeking a severance of the farm into two separate parcels. So that's in terms of existing documentation that we would require. It effectively revolves around those existing policies that we have both in the county's official plan as well as Middlesex Center's official plan that talk about the minimum agricultural parcel size being that 40 hectares. So because in this case, the remnant parcel is capable of still meeting that 40 hectares, but the severed parcel is not. So that's why we say, there are additional applications that would need to be considered prior to us making a decision on this particular application. So that's why we're recommending deferral, and just point of clarification, it's not a surplus dwelling severance.
Okay, thanks. I'm just going to go up to Mr. Stapleton. There we go. Just open it up. Yeah, that's so he's not speaking my lane. Okay, Mr. Stapleton, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, can you speak a little louder?
Yes, in addition to further to what Dan has said as well, the town of Middlesex Center is also asked that the new official plan be referred back to council. This application has some history with the previous decisions associated with growth boundaries. So the outcome of that would also have an effect on how we handle this consent. And that process is ongoing and will probably take the next number of months to resolve. And we're patient people, and we're willing to work with staff and council for the ultimate decision regarding that. I think combining what that process and what Mr. Fitzgerald said regarding the farm severance, the path to be followed is yet to be decided on that. And we made the application in advance of those decisions happening, so that we could have that discussion as part of that official plan hearing. And the referral back now puts it back in council's hands. So we're looking forward to that discussion to continue. And that's why we're looking for the deferral. because there's layers associated with this application and these lands that need to be considered again by council, and this is the process that we're in. So the decision regarding the path that we have to take regarding the consent will be informed over the next number of months, and that's why we defer it now until we come back with those answers, so the committee would have a full picture and be able to decide accordingly. Okay.
Well, thank you, Mr. Sherman. Just for clarification, what's the path forward is a settlement expansion, correct? To assess. Can you
So through the chair, I can speak to that. So what the applicant has referred to is the ongoing appeal of OPA 59. So these lands are subject to that appeal. And so that is what the applicant has referred to. And so, yes, if, when that gets resolved, that could have an impact on this severance.
Stephanie? Okay. I don't think there's anybody else here. I think it's the business to come. So I'll now turn to committee of adjustment. Go ahead, Councilor Oakes. Let's
through the chair, I apologize. For some reason, I thought it was surplus from severance instead of the split. So I usually so thank you.
I apologize, Councilor. That's what we're paying for. Consultations from committee. Okay, so the recommendation is to defer. Everybody understands the path forward. Everybody agrees with that. So I also move it. And so Shepley, Councilor Charles is a seconder. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. So this is deferred. Number 6 correspondence. There is no correspondence pertaining to this meeting. Does anybody have any other business to bring up? Okay. Here we go. To adjourn. Councilor Cost, Councilor Chase, all in favor? Okay. Adjourned.